How did a disabled man born into slavery 2,000 years ago inspire a Roman emperor, shape modern psychotherapy, and teach lessons that still benefit us today? I'm going to tell you the true story of Epictetus, the philosopher who gave us a blueprint for living well even when life gets hard. Epictetus' true name is unknown, but the name he was called, Epictetus, translates simply to acquired. He was born around 50 AD in Phrygia, that's present-day Turkey, and he was a slave. Interestingly, his owner was a former slave who'd been freed, climbed the social ladder, and became wealthy. Epictetus was disabled and had a limp. Though we can't be certain about the cause of his disability, according to one historical writer, his leg had been deliberately broken by his master. Even as he lived in bondage, Epictetus was obsessed with one question: what is actually under our control, and what should we simply release? Surprisingly, his owner gave him permission to study Stoic philosophy. Picture it for a moment: a slave attending lectures by famous Roman philosophers, quietly crafting ideas that would outlast empires. In adulthood, Epictetus was freed and began to teach philosophy in Rome, and then was promptly kicked out when the emperor banished all philosophers from the city. Epictetus shrugged, and then he rebuilt in a small Greek town. There he founded a new school of philosophy. His behavior mirrors his core lesson: focus on the movable pieces, your response, not on what you can't change, such as the decree of a tyrant. Here's a strange thing about Epictetus. As far as we know, he never wrote down a word of his philosophy, at least none that has ever been found. So how do we know any of this? Enter Arrian, his star pupil. Arrian said that he sat in lectures transcribing Epictetus, word for word as best he could, endeavoring to preserve all of his wisdom. Thanks to that obsessive note-taking, we have the discourses and a tiny handbook called the Enchiridion, which literally means ready at hand, a phrase used to refer to handy swords or daggers. Think of it as the original pocket guide to cognitive resilience. Fast forwarding through time, we can watch the ripple effects of Epictetus' ideas. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor who is himself a philosopher, cites Epictetus constantly in his meditations. Voltaire calls him a sage, whom one almost despairs of imitating. He's also referenced in the works of great novelists like James Joyce, J.D. Salinger, and Tom Wolfe. Albert Ellis, father of rational emotive behavior therapy, credited Epictetus as providing a foundation for his system of psychotherapy. Albert Ellis's approach eventually merged into cognitive behavioral therapy, also known as CBT, which is currently the most proven therapy for treating depression and anxiety. If you've ever done a cognitive behavioral therapy homework assignment from a therapist, you owe a tiny debt to Epictetus. But what did Epictetus actually teach? Let's consider 4 of his insights, each paired with a challenge that you can actually do. First, on happiness, Epictetus said, "There's one way to happiness. Cease worrying about things that are beyond your will." The idea is that there are some things we have control over and other things that we don't. And all too often, we spend time obsessing over what we can't change rather than focusing our energy on what is within our power to change. Try this today. Make a list of things you commonly worry about. Then review the list and cross out every one of the items on the list that you don't have significant control over. His second insight regards emotion. Epictetus said, "Anyone capable of angering you becomes your master. They can anger you only when you permit yourself to be disturbed." He's not saying never feel angry. Epictetus is saying don't hand the steering wheel of your emotions to someone else. Here's something to try. The next time someone cuts you off or makes a rude comment online, notice the anger bubbling up inside of you and ask yourself, do you really want to give this person control over you by allowing them to dictate how you feel? It's up to you and only you whether their behavior ruins your day. Epictetus' third insight is on self-improvement. He said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought of as foolish and stupid. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. What Epictetus is pointing out is that the ego can be a huge impediment to our learning and growth. We need to be okay with looking foolish sometimes and accepting that there's so much we don't know. And by doing so, we can improve much more rapidly. Here's a goal you can set based on this idea. The next time you have a question that you're worried might sound dumb, or you're confused about something that you feel you should understand, commit to asking a question instead of trying to shield your ego. Epictetus' fourth insight is about meaning. He said, "Seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourselves." Modern research echoes this. The goals which are linked to our intrinsic values, the things that we deeply care about for their own sake, drive more lasting well-being than goals we seek for extrinsic purposes, such as seeking approval from other people. So here's an exercise you can do. Consider one of the goals you've set for yourself. Now break down the reasons that you set this goal. Which of these reasons are connected to your intrinsic values, the things that you fundamentally care about? And which of them are based on extrinsic reasons? So why have Epictetus' ideas endured over the millennia? He experienced slavery, disability, exile. These are extreme challenges he had no control over. And yet his philosophy was about finding happiness and freedom in a world that is often out of our control. These insights are just as applicable today as they were in his time. To crystallize two takeaways from his philosophy. 1, draw the circle of control with a thick marker. Focus on what's inside the circle. 2, treat emotional changes as representing a moment of choice. You don't have to do what the emotion is trying to compel you to do. Epictetus' body limped while his mind sprinted ahead 2 millennia. Let's try to keep up. If you found this interesting, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. You can also learn a lot more about this topic in our in-depth article on clearerthinking.org.